All right. So Kimi K3 just landed, and people are already stacking it up against Gemma 4, and honestly, the numbers are wild. Kimi K3 hit 94% on GPQA Diamond, independently verified by artificial analysis, and that's a real score, not vendor spin. Both models dropped recently, and picking the wrong one could cost you real money or real time. So I'm running Kimi K3 versus Gemma 4 across 4 real tests, pulled from 18 sources, cross-checked against independent labs, and anything I couldn't verify got cut. Now, if you're planning to run one of these locally on your own machine, the answer might already be made for you before you look at a single benchmark score. And that part is kind of a gut punch. So this comparison is for you if you're picking a model to route API calls through, run locally, or drop into an agentic coding workflow. Because pick the wrong one and you're either waiting 237 seconds for your first token or burning GPU budget on a model you can't even load. And both of those are real costs I want to help you skip. Test 1 is reasoning and math problem solving. And this one matters because if a model cracks on hard logic or graduate level science questions, your agentic pipeline just starts producing confident garbage. You don't always catch it, it ships, and then you're debugging something that looked right but was wrong from step 1. Okay, so what I found here was pretty interesting. Kimi K3 scored 94% on GPQA Diamond. That's independently verified. And on the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, it sits at 57, ranking number 7 out of 190 models. Gemma, 431 billion, came back at 85.2% on MMLU Pro versus K3, 78.5%, though both of those are community reported, so take them as directional. Before we call this one, I want to be honest about something. The AIME scores look close, K3 at 88% and Gemma 4 at 89.2%, but they ran on different exam years, so that's not a real head-to-head. And Gemma 4 has no published GPQA Diamond number at all, so the gap is real in some spots and genuinely unknown in others. Honestly, I expected K3 to pull away clean here, but the data doesn't fully support that. Gemma 4 leads on MMLU Pro, K3 leads where we have verified numbers, and too many matchups are missing one side entirely, so this one's a tie, which puts us at 0-0 with one test tied after round 1. Test 2 is inference speed and latency, and this is the one where slow doesn't just feel bad, it actually breaks things. Because a 237-second wait for your first token means your user has already closed the tab, filed a bug report, or both, and speed stops being a nice to have pretty fast. What surprised me was just how wide the gap is. Kimi K3 clocks 33 tokens per second with a 237-second time to first token on a 10,000 token input measured by artificial analysis, while Gemma 431 billion on Cerebras hits 1,851 tokens per second with a 192 millisecond TTFT. And that's not a small difference. That's a completely different class of experience. To be fair, those numbers aren't on identical infrastructure. Gemma 4's 1,851 tokens per second is on Cerebras, which is a specialized inference chip, not a standard GPU endpoint. And the TTFT figures came from different providers and different workloads. So directionally, Gemma 4 is way faster, but the exact gap depends on where you're actually calling these models from. I expected K3 to be slower given its size, but 237 seconds to first token is genuinely painful in a way I didn't fully appreciate until I put it next to 192 milliseconds. Gemma 4 takes this one, and it's not close, so that puts us at Gemma 4-1, Kimi K3 0, with one tie still on the board. Test 3 is local deployment and hardware requirements, and if you're thinking about running either of these on your own machine, this is where things get brutal fast, because picking the wrong model here costs you the ability to run it at all, and that's before you've spent a single dollar on cloud compute. So I looked at the hardware requirements, and the contrast is pretty extreme. Kimi K3 needs a minimum of 8 hours on 100 GPUs just to load the weights, and Moonshot recommends 64 accelerators for production, while Gemma 431 billion runs at 4-bit quantization on about 20 gigabytes VRAM, so a single RTX 4090 handles it, and the E4B variant runs on 5 to 6 gigabytes VRAM, meaning a decent laptop can actually run it. Okay, so I expected a gap here, but not this kind of gap. K3 needs a data center, Gemma 4 runs on your laptop, so Gemma 4 wins this one without any real contest. And that brings the score to Gemma 4-2, Kimi K3 0, with that one tie still sitting there from the reasoning round. S4 is coding and multilingual performance, and this one stings when a model gets it wrong because bad code doesn't always fail loudly. Sometimes it just ships with a subtle bug you find 3 weeks later in production. So the ceiling on this dimension actually matters a lot if you're using a model to write real code. What surprised me is how many verified wins K3 stacks up here. Looking at the independent artificial analysis numbers, K3 ranked number 1 on Automation Bench AA at 53%, number 1 on Harvey LAB AA at 95%, and took the top spot on Front-End Code Arena, winning 76% of blind matchups against Claude Fable 5. Gemma 431 billion posted 80% on Live Code Bench V6, which is genuinely strong, but K3 has no figure there for a direct comparison. I want to be honest that this isn't a clean sweep for K3. Gemma 4's live code bench V6 score of 80% is described as best in class for open models under 35B, and K3 just doesn't have a number there to compare. And K3's terminal bench score swings from 85% on independent testing to 88.3% when run on K3's own harness, which is a 3-point gap from methodology alone. Honestly, I thought this might go to Gemma 4 on the live code bench number alone, but the breadth of independently verified top rankings for K3 is hard to argue with. Kimi K3 takes the coding round, and that puts us at Kimi K3 1, Gemma 4 2 with one tie, heading into the final call. So where does Kimi K3 clearly win? Frontier reasoning depth, it scored 57 on the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, ranking number 7 out of 190 models. Intent coding, it holds verified number 1 spots on Automation Bench, AA, Harvey LAB AA, and Front-End Code Arena. Context window, 1 million tokens versus Gemma 4's 256,000 and GPQA Diamond at 94%, independently verified with no Gemma 4 figure to match it. And where does Gemma 4 clearly win? Local deployment, it runs on a single RTX 4090 at about 20 gigabytes VRAM, while K3 needs 8 hours 100s minimum. Speed, 1,851 tokens per second on Cerebras versus K3's 33, and a 192 millisecond TTFT versus K3's 237 seconds. Hardware range, from a 4 gigabytes phone all the way up to 31B. And MMLU Pro at 85.2% versus K3's 78.5%. Okay, so I went into this thinking K3 would win on raw intelligence and Gemma 4 would win on hardware. And that's kind of what happened, but the practical gap on speed and local access is way bigger than I expected. So here's the decision rule. If you're routing API calls and need the best reasoning and agentic coding available, go Kimi K3, and if you need local deployment, low latency, or anything running on normal hardware, Gemma 4 is the obvious choice.